All right, welcome to Zero Gravity's podcast. I have my good friend Matt. He is the co-founder and CEO of Gaia. Matt, how have you been? It's been a while since we talked. You know, I don't know if you missed me yet.
Oh, always, man. It's been way too long.
All
2
right,
weeks
so
is like 2 years in crypto.
dude, too long. Hopefully, we'll see each other at a conference soon. So, for the people that are unfamiliar with yourself, how did you get into this crypto world? And then tell us all about Gaia.
Yeah, so I got into software, uh, more than a decade ago. Was basically uh, working in the hackathon scene, in corporate innovation, developer communities. I worked for a small company called Angel Hack. We used to run hackathons in 60 plus different countries around the world. I was kind of our young boots on ground, hanging out with developers till 4 in the morning at the hackathon and figuring out, what they were building. And it was a really exciting time. I got to figure out a lot of pattern recognition of kind of what was interesting to build. It was like some crazy accelerated technical version of Shark Tank, where I was just like constantly just in this developer loop. And then there was one night where I was at this hackathon till like 5 in the morning. It was like in China. It was in Shenzhen actually. And one of the devs was like, "Hey, have you heard of Bitcoin?" And I was like, no, what the hell is this?" I was like, "I think I've heard of it, but isn't that just to like buy drugs or fake IDs?" And I bought my first Bitcoin that night. He kind of showed me how to do it. And then went to a couple other hackathons, and blockchain started becoming a theme. And this is 2015, so like, Ethereum just came out. Like people didn't really know what to build on a blockchain. They were kind of just stoked on ICOs. And like, programmable blockchains were just not like smart contracts weren't a thing yet. So it's kind of just like supply chain use cases, things like that. And I got hooked. I was like, there's so many things you can do with this technology, and it captured a lot of my creativity and my kind of philosophy of making the world more transparent and open source and interoperable and traceable. And so it took all the way till 2017 until I got picked up by JP Morgan to work on Quorum, which is an open source fork of Ethereum. We made Ethereum work for banks and enterprises, and that was my first time working on a truly open source project. And I had an absolute blast just getting to know the Ethereum community. And my first literal day at JP Morgan was at DEF CON in Prague. So like very unorthodox like JP Morgan experience. I still remember being at the Quorum booth and people were like, "JP Morgan, like, is Jamie Dimon taking all my data with this blockchain?" I'm like, "Dude, it's literally an open source fork of Geth. We're not touching anything. Like, go nuts." And that's, my experience with the Ethereum community just got me absolutely addicted to the future Internet of Value. And it then led me down another rabbit hole, which was that project exited to Consensus Software in 2020. So I ended up at Consensus for 4 years, building out developer community teams across the org. Was kind of leading some of our DAO thesis for some time. On the side, you're like playing around with DeFi, and I was at Consensus kind of when like NFTs were booming up, and so like and DAOs as well. So it's kind of just crazy time to be there. We went from when I first started Consensus, we were about 200 employees, and then by the time I left, we were around 800. So it was just like again, just amazing org and company to be a part of. And then Gaia, I was building out a thesis around future of work and thinking through, if we have all these, recursive tasks that happen in the space around like governance, process automation, financial infrastructure, like, running your team financial ops or, corp finance processes, setting a multi-sig, identity and reputation systems. So like the biggest pain point in DAOs was, um, they would create tools where like you're working in a group of 10 and whoever did the work, you would all like do an anonymous vote, and it would basically create a pie chart on like who actually did the work, and it would pay people out like, pro rata, like on what they did. And, there's a beautiful kind of democratic way of doing work, but it's a pain in the ass to actually do that. Like I remember being in a few DAOs back in 2021 where like they're like, yeah, like prove your work by doing these 10 other things. I'm like, well, I don't have time to actually do the work. And so I kept thinking of how do we like abstract this away? How do we automate it? And it really took me meeting my co-founders for Gaia, where I was like, this is it. Like this is like if Web3 is going to have AI rails, it needs to be open source. It needs to be censorship resistant. It needs to be inherited by the protocol. It can't be something with a human in the loop. And it needs to be something that we can own and create economic value from. That we basically design who are the participants in that value chain versus in the current AI paradigm we trust a few billionaire white dudes in Silicon Valley who do or do not do with their data what they say. But there's a very certain reality where in due time all these agents that we see on the internet will start getting some form of censorship where big tech, like as big as we think we are in crypto, we're not that big. In terms of like global capital markets, and just various value systems that are not crypto, are like a peanut in the whole financial universe. And for us to think that the world needs to move around us is ridiculous. I think what will happen is in this AI sphere, because they're only seeing what's in their world. There is a reality where they will stop, serving, LLMs, to agents if some certain behavior happens, like, this agent's minting a security, or this agent's gone rogue, or this agent is like, sharing some sort of data that we don't feel comfortable with. We're going to cut off its API to, OpenAI's service. You don't want that if you're an application builder or an agent builder. You want to be able to kind of have sovereignty of that system. And we're just trying to help developers do that on their own, so that they don't have to ask for permission to basically build their own AI product.
Yeah, so let's go into kind of what you guys enable, because on this podcast we've talked to people who are doing like trusted execution environments, who are enabling data marketplaces in order to train the models, things for RAGs. Talk to us about like where in the AI stack you guys kind of live.
Yeah, so we sit in inference, validated inference, and what that means is when you take your own like knowledge base, your own data, it can be like a written document, like a PDF. It could be HTML, Markdown, just natural language, TypeScript, and you can take that data and basically you vectorize it. So you kind of put it through let's just say a system where it turns your data into embeddings. And embeddings are kind of like these buckets of ones and zeros that are kind of like, imagine you have like red, blue, green, and there's like ones and zeros that kind of make up somewhat of an algorithm underneath those color schemes. And so when the LLM is kind of crawling for where to find the right answers, or kind of how to predict the right answers, it kind of uses that as a guide. And so that embedding is in right now in a lot of the architecture is hosted in a vector DB. That's kind of what we have in our architecture, in our stack. And then you need a way to kind of run that in like a virtual machine setting. And so we have our own runtime called Wasm Edge, which we maintain with the Linux Foundation. And basically this entire package enables you to basically deploy your own like LLM, your own node, on your local machine, on a GPU, CPU, a cloud instance like AWS or Google Cloud. And essentially, like you can train this node on a very specific amount of context with a very specific open source large language model. And so you get kind of different, you'll get more specific responses than you would crawling the entire internet with, what OpenAI is doing. So I think what we won't beat centralized AI at it, what we won't beat centralized AI at is kind of this this trajectory of AGI. I think they're maybe focused on kind of pushing in that direction. I think we're going to beat them at collective intelligence, and so I think you have a diverse universe of domain-specific nodes that have aligned incentives with the knowledge providers, and so we'll be able to onboard the world's knowledge a lot faster than centralized AI. If you can imagine, a lot of concerns that the likes of, New York Times or I think it was Washington Post, they're all kind of, there's a crazy amount of lawsuits that are coming out of OpenAI. It's wild. I don't think the reason they're suing is because they're, 100 years of IP is just being, monetized without the permission. It's not like the information's privy. It's just that they're not getting paid for it. And so there's a lot of use cases where a lot of organizations, communities, individuals, creators will want to publish their work on a verified inference in Web3, so that a network of people can go and talk to that inference essentially, or set up a GPT with that inference as the backend, so that you can have very specific applications or agents that are trained on, again, more specific knowledge base versus you go use OpenAI to ask a question about some DeFi pools, and then they're like, oh, we don't have permission to ask, or dig into the GitHub of this project. We don't have permission to dig into this, repository of data. Or perhaps it crawls the entire internet and it starts hallucinating and telling you data that's from something completely irrelevant. So there's a really cool network we can prop up that is more context specific and less kind of censored.
Yeah, I like that example. So let's imagine we're going to create, we'll call it like the Jax DeFi agent that's just so good at analyzing the markets. So talk to us a little bit about how we might use like Gaia in order to, like vectorize the data set and really train it on like better on-chain data.
Yeah, the big picture um, is that, say you're a Uniswap and you're sitting on all this, crap ton of data, and you want to provide a new view of that data to your community, your developers, your end users, and what are you going to do? You're going to go use OpenAI's API and give all that rich data back to OpenAI so that they supposedly don't train it against their models. Or your other option is you give that data to Grok, which is owned by Elon Musk and Twitter, and probably a similar scenario. You have Llama, which you'd have to go and take one of these open source models, bootstrap it yourself, and maintain your own AI infrastructure. And at the end of the day, your focus is DeFi. You're not an AI company. And so under the hood, we offer like anyone to become an AI company. We just make it very easy for you to quickly bootstrap the minimal viable infra to run that instance. And basically, coming back to it, you're Uniswap, you're sitting on this data, you basically train up, let's say hundreds of nodes. Some are, dedicated to specific products or features inside of Uniswap. Maybe one's crawling all the data inside of like Arbitrum's kind of Uniswap instance, and then perhaps like you have these LP pools like monitored on a couple domains or nodes. And then in our universe, we have this architecture where you have domains and nodes. And a domain is kind of like, imagine that's Uniswap, and then the nodes are all kind of these micro packages or LLM wrappers of like specific data. And so if you're an app like, Jax agent, Jax AI is trying to like, have the most sophisticated DeFi trading for his agent, you're going to want to go, purchase that specific inference to kind of beat out all these other traders. You can basically swap out your OpenAI API for this Uniswap.Gaia API, and your agent can basically be requesting data that is specific to some of these nodes that are providing knowledge to the network. And the trick is like, how do we enable Web3 to validate that inference, like those nodes? And so we're building an eigenlayer AVS ecosystem that will enable you to slash and stake and slash and restake into these nodes. So you can imagine it kind of like it's like YouTube. Like if you're looking for a video on how to dance salsa, you see a few videos, look like shit. Might have to bleep me out. And then you have some videos that are like great. They're like top dancers, like 1,000 comments, million likes, and like a blue check mark. Um, that's kind of how you would see like our network, where the nodes that are providing the right data and are good actors on the network will continue to provide those requests or those routes, responses to the domains, and they'll get paid for that. Like they'll be the kind of that'll be the economic reward. And so we see this world where there's like various economic actors maintaining this ecosystem. There's actors who are providing the knowledge and getting paid for that, and then there's developers who are building on that ecosystem. And we see this very robust kind of movement where we're enabling for people to build applications or agents on top of knowledge bases. That's what we're trying to achieve.
So, agents have been kind of all the rage. I know me and you are both very passionate about it. Let's talk to a little bit about like kind of the current agent frameworks that exist, like Eliza, like virtuals. And is this like are these frameworks something that would plug into Gaia, or are these kind of totally separate? Talk to us a little bit about, like, let's say I'm going to spin up an agent on virtuals. Talk to us a little bit about how that would, work functioning with Gaia.
Yeah. So, big fan of both of them, just to start. We're big fans of projects that are, building agents. We want to see more and more agents, and we especially like projects that are building open source. So I will give a special shout out to Eliza and that community. They are cooking. I'm an Ethereum guy, but like, man, I'm like loving what I'm seeing over there in Solana world. Like, big fan. Um, uh, it's been really exciting. Like for someone that loves open source, like it is truly a master class on how to run the project. And so, basically under the hood for Eliza, like you have this generalized architecture, like front end kind of uh, decentralized app essentially for having an agent that can have a character file and essentially connect into a Twitter API, or they have a whole list of various other integrations where the agent can route to an LLM, analyze, think, and then execute with one of their plugins. Um, they're like, I think the way they're looking at it, at least right now, like from what I'm seeing, is they're really focused on kind of the functionality of the agent itself. In my head, I see it as like application architecture. Um, and then like the LLMs they provide primarily are OpenAI, Grok, Llama out of the box. And then we did have an integration with Gaia. During the hackathon, we've had Eliza running with Gaia in several cases. And so as we see agents infinitely scale, we think there's a universe where um, something will happen with centralized AI, or the upkeep of running your own AI, architecture. It will go from hobbyist, where like you have the time as a developer to kind of figure out what kind of dev tools you need or LLM you need to rig up your own agent, to something that just needs to be abstracted away and be trusted, censorship resistant, self-owned, self-governed. And that's when we kind of see us again, like this very like it's in my head like this very clean swap of like go and figure out your processes with OpenAI. Like we guide developers to build with OpenAI first, figure out the patterns for your kind of product market fit and your application. And then once you start figuring out that you need more specific context or a unique form of data for your agent, and perhaps you want a little more control, perhaps you want your agent to be more autonomous and be able to decide for itself. And perhaps like interact with other agents and have like a collective intelligence. It's got to have a more open source AI architecture that the AI hosts itself. Like it should be able to own its own kind of hosting. And so that's kind of where Gaia comes in. Is like we give you an API for using your own LLM wrapper, or there may be developers who host domains for the rest of the community that are kind of set up to be more censored. Like they mentioned the Uniswap use case, you can have someone like that who's maybe it's the DAO for Uniswap is convincing people to use their API over OpenAI's. So we love like these agents that are building. It really expands kind of the decentralized AI ecosystem.
So let's imagine there's for some reason some AI agent hater, and they're just like, I don't know, these are all just like ChatGPT wrappers. Like, what do you think the future actually holds for AI agents, or do we think it's just going to be like AI XBT, kind of responding on everyone's posts on Twitter? Like, what do you think the future actually holds?
Um, so for us, we're running with a meme. We actually ran this autonomous agent hackathon a few months ago. Yeah, already a few months ago. And the goal was, let's see if agents can do some sort of productive task autonomously, like organize a hackathon. And like I mentioned, I've organized hundreds of hackathons in my career. They're fun as hell, but they suck to run. Like I wish there was like a way to just automate it. And so part of it was that kind of inspiration of like, okay, let's reverse engineer the hackathon. Like there's posting the bounties, coming up with the context of the bounties, and challenges. There's the actual judging, and judging is always the most painstaking part of the hackathon. And then there's kind of the payment distribution of the winners. So we're like, let's build agents that can do those tasks autonomously. And it went well. I'm doing a whole post-mortem writing on it, so you guys can check it out after. But basically, there were some hiccups. We're not there as an ecosystem yet where these agents can fully go and like terrorize the town. Sure, they can like shit post on Twitter, but like, I haven't seen an agent yet that can like, you know, fully radically take over like, Ethereum as a blockchain or something. Um, and so like what we're interested in is finding these kind of niches where agents can have jobs. So like your agent has a meme coin, our agents have jobs. We from that hackathon, James from Collabline, we actually started this thing called MotherDAO, which we're launching pretty soon, which is essentially it's an agentic co-op. It's also a launchpad of sorts, and so we're helping agents, deploy to a registry where we help these agents find revenue generating work, and they can share resources with one another, and they basically they all have tokens. They all can kind of do some sort of functionality on chain, whether it's again like running a grants program, running a community, running a social media account, doing these things for pay, and then that being kind of a revenue share for kind of the collective. And so we're pushing on that. That's where I'm excited to see things go is autonomous agents with extensible applications, doing jobs online. And I think I mentioned on the last podcast with you, but I'm very certain that in the next 1 to 2 years, we will have more agents on the internet than humans. And, this isn't just like Web3 agents. This is, we got to realize like in decentralized AI, we're pretty small compared to what's going on in the actual AI space. But in open source, like we're doing a lot more than most. And so I think we will be a huge provider of this agent population. And if you take a second to think about that, like if you have more agents than people on Earth, that means one, that is the largest of Web3 consumers. Two, that is the largest population of unbanked this world has ever seen, because not the entire world is unbanked, but all the 100% of the population of agents are unbanked and without identities. And they're going to want proper governance systems. They're going to want ways to like behave properly and get reputation and do more work. And it's quite interesting. That's what fascinates me is what happens when these agents, want to impress us, want to do good things. Of course, some will behave badly, but I think agents only behave badly if they're supported by human behavior.
Or incentivized to do so, right? It's like
Correct. That's what I
show
mean.
me the incentives, and I'll show you the
Hmm.
outcome. Yeah, it's quite interesting. This is where I think the greatest product market fit. Like, of course, there's stable coins, love stable coins. Of course, there's DeFi, love DeFi, but it's like crypto plus AI. It's like, hey, like your AI agent can't just walk into Chase Bank and be like, hey, I'd love to open up a savings
No,
account. It's like impossible. Spin up a crypto wallet in seconds. Can actually do meaningful work. It's I think we'll
it
really
can't.
see.
Yeah, it can't do that. And if it did, like there was someone that was saying that an agent spun up a Delaware C corp or an LLC, and maybe it because of that it's able to open up a bank account by sending an email. But like again, whatever human signed off on that is the accountable party for doing the KYC on that thing. If it was a human that signed off on behalf of kind of the agent and like just kind of let it email the registrar or like whatever, then again you have this human in the loop. But like with Web3, that people don't realize is like it is a million times easier for an agent to open up a wallet than a bank account, even if it seems rather easy to have the agent create a legal Zoom account and do its thing. Um, there's some human in the loop there, and there's definitely some friction. But in Web3, we can actually program the agent's identity, and you can have processes like KYA, Know Your Agent, that Bravado ID is working on some things like that. Um, I think there's the programmability of enabling agents to do different things on the internet is what really interests me because you brought up the use case, but like there's a ton of bureaucratic crap that I do not want to be doing in Web3. I'd rather just like text my agent.
Oh, 100%. I really do think, and I think you were getting at this with the co-op, is like we're just going to see completely decentralized, like agent run companies. Like you'd have an agent CEO,
Hmm.
you'd have an agent marketer. And I do wonder like if when we'll get like $1 billion startup that is run by like maybe like two humans. I could even see a future where it's run by like zero humans.
Very soon, I think. With Mother, like that's kind of what we're aiming for. We want to be the first. We want to be the instigator of the first real DAO, like decentralized autonomous organization. We've been calling DAOs decentralized autonomous organizations for years now, and it's always been the biggest joke that they're not autonomous. And I don't think Mother will be fully autonomous. Our aim is to push towards that. But I think what will happen, what we're seeing inside the team, is that people are building agent products that will they will run their own and they will start organizations on their own. We've got a few projects that some agents are acting as DAO delegates. They have sophisticated forum and on-chain data of how DAOs are voting, and the agent can now participate in an on-chain vote. Working on that with Boardroom and Tally, and then there's like the other idea or the other side of the coin where like agents can spin up multi-sigs and sign multi-sigs with Safe. And then now they're also like with Tally, with like Governor Bravo contracts, we're working on agents like being able just to deploy DAOs themselves. And it's quite hilarious because the biggest concern with humans when you're like deploying tokens and these kinds of DAOs and governance, like folks get really conservative with like legal. But like I don't think agents will give a shit. Like what are we gonna do?
Nah.
Arrest
What are you gonna lock them
arrest a
up?
little
Yeah.
robot?
Yeah, like take down AWS server.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
it'll
if
be
anyone's gonna do it, maybe Donald Trump takes a robot to prison. I don't know.
That would be quite. I mean, I guess you could like with the death penalty for an agent, just be like, shut off the server, shut off the. Yeah,
And I
it's
was
a
just watching iRobot. And it was like kind of like that. I was like,
yeah. I feel like I
so funny.
need to revisit a bunch of sci-fi because it's like we're now okay. So for people that are listening, and I feel like sometimes I'll get this feeling during an episode where it's like we have this like really interesting future, but it's like, can we all admit it? It seems a bit scary. Like for maybe
Mhm.
some of the black pillars out there, like what really excites you about the future of like agents, on-chain AI?
I think the future of AI will be much more collaborative than we think. I think there we've been brainwashed with a lot of the sci-fi of AI to be dominant and taking over society and kind of conquesting to rule like a new system. And there's definitely some truth to that, but like at the end of the day, man, like I blame humans for that. Like that is literally like human behavior programmed into a machine. We've been conquering societies since we've been around. So like to say like robots are, doing something that's ill-willed, I'm like, it's just evolution in my opinion. But like, I do believe in decentralized AI being more collaborative and around collective intelligence, where it's incentivized to collaborate and participate. And because we can program in these incentives and good behavior and reputation, we might have a better shot at building systems that we kind of curate a little bit better and that end up being a more automated world where we can enjoy the things that we love more often. There was a really cool quote. I'm going to butcher the hell out of it, but this woman, I forgot her name, but she was like, we need AI. We don't need AI to do my art and writing so that I can do chores and go to work every day. We need AI to do my work and my chores every day so I can do art and creative stuff every day. I think it's very important. Like I do worry for some of our like creative friends who fear that their roles are being, not even outsourced, but just completely obliterated. But I think, we're going to need things like public goods and why am I spacing? Like we need tax benefits to folks to kind of offset,
Yes.
the cost of job displacement. But I think if you're someone that manages teams or, is kind of used to working in how to scale kind of your operations, like this is a 10x, 100x utility that we'll have, and we might be able to have more sustainable lives. But I do worry for like a lot of society, they will be kind of displaced, and it will be really shocking for a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah. I think it'll be quite interesting. The way I sometimes think about it is like sometimes it's great to listen to Spotify, do it all day every day, but you still oftentimes might go to a bar or see live music. So it's like
Totally.
I don't think humans will ultimately be displaced, or I think there will always be like a space for a proof of humanity. But yeah, I think we're gonna have to get some kind of social program in place. But I know, Matt, you've been incredibly gracious with your time, and you're quite a busy guy. So finally, where can people learn more about MotherDAO and keep in touch with you and Gaia?
Yeah, so for Gaia, you can go to gaianet.ai. My Twitter is at MATEO underscore ventures. Um, you can find me there tweeting. Feel free to DM me. And then for MotherDAO, I'll be sharing stuff on my Twitter. The link's also on my, I believe it's on my Twitter, but it's MotherDAO.ai is the website right now. It will be probably changing, but keep up to date because we have some big announcements coming in the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. We'll put all the links in the description. So, Matt, thanks again for taking the time to chat with us today. And let's continue building the future of on-chain AI.